Foreign workers in PEI enter fourth day of hunger strike in protest of province's immigration strategy. The world's oldest queer bookstore is fighting for its life. U of T administration seeks an injunction to clear encampment. Israel faces international condemnation following the massacre in Rafah. Over 2,000 people killed in landslide in Papua New Guinea. And military in Burkina Faso extends its rule by 5 years. Good morning. It's Tuesday, May 28th. I'm Nora. Here are your headlines. Foreign workers in PEI are on their fourth day of a hunger strike in protest of changes to the province's immigration strategy. Kevin Yar, reporting for CBC, writes that they are specifically against changes the province is making to the number of workers it will nominate for permanent residency from 2,100 to 1,600. While immigration is under federal jurisdiction, a nomination from a province almost guarantees approval for permanent residency. PEI's government said the changes to the strategy result from concerns over increased pressures on healthcare and housing. It said that it prefers workers in industries like healthcare and construction and those with a labor shortage. The protesters said that they are prepared to continue the hunger strike until the government hears their demands, including exempting people who arrived before July 2023 from the changes. Next, Gladday bookstore in Toronto is struggling with what they say is a massive hit in their sales. Founded in 1970, the store is the world's oldest 2S LGBTQ bookstore. The biggest threat is their rent, which has risen, as you might imagine it would have in rent-hungry Toronto. And they're trying to raise enough money to pay the $100,000 in rent that they owe. Monthly, their rent is $18,000. On their website, they write, quote, Gladday is still busy, but everyone spends less per visit, and many folks can't spend anything at all, unquote. Now, there isn't much out there about this news. It seems like only Blog TO has written about it, and it's all information taken from the same website that I'm citing, too. Thanks so much to the individual that sent me this story to make sure that it was on my radar. If you can help out the Gladday bookstore, you can visit their website at www.gladday.ca/save Gladday. Though I fear that the days where Toronto could afford to have nice things might be slipping away. Remember the Toronto Women's Bookstore? That closed 11 years ago. Next, a quick update on the encampment at the University of Toronto. As I mentioned yesterday, the students there were given a deadline of 8 a.m. Monday to leave or face police violence. The 8 a.m. deadline came and went, and students and their allies remained steadfast in their determination to stay until the administration meets their demands. There was quite a rally as well, notably with the Ontario Federation of Labour's President Laura Walton addressing the crowd, promising workers solidarity to support the encampment. In reaction, the university filed a court injunction to allow Toronto Police, the Ontario Provincial Police, and quote-unquote any other police who I guess are just hanging around downtown. That pretty much only leaves the rent-a-cops at U of T and the RCMP. But anyway, to arrest and remove, quote, persons, objects, and structures, unquote, at the encampment. The hearing on the injunction is set to take place today. We've seen how police have treated students at encampments in Quebec and Alberta. A judge in Quebec has refused a similar request from McGill University twice. These student encampments have been a small glimmer of hope amidst everything unfolding in Gaza. And as I say today on the Sandy and Nora podcast, folks in Toronto, I'm going to be heading down there today. So hopefully I'll be able to see some folks, whether that's at court support or at the encampment itself at U of T. Next, Canadian and international political leaders reacted to the massacre that Israel carried out in Rafah last night. Starting here in Canada, Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly put out a statement. Just surprising because she was radio silent on the whole war crimes charge from the ICC. Anyway, quote, "We are horrified by strikes that killed Palestinian civilians in Rafah. Canada does not support an Israeli military operation in Rafah. This level of human suffering must come to an end. We demand an immediate ceasefire," unquote. Neither Joly nor the Prime Minister gave a press conference to answer reporters' questions about the continued Canadian military support to Israel or our purchases from Israel of weapons. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh did speak to reporters, calling the massacre horrific and calling for the government to prevent a genocide. I'm not sure what Singh thinks has been happening in the last 8 months, but okay, good. Time to prevent a genocide. It's very important to mention that Singh is literally propping up the Liberals right now and could withdraw his support for their government or threaten to withdraw support for their government if the Liberals weren't stronger on their positions against Israel. Jagmeet Singh also has not actually visited a single encampment or marched in a single rally in favor of the people of Gaza, which I think is pretty, surprising is not the right word. Gross? It's gross. The government has also moved to increase its cap on the number of Palestinians that will be allowed under a program it introduced earlier this year to 5,000 from 1,000. As I and others have reported, Palestinians who received approval under the program and who've made it out of Gaza have still not yet arrived in Canada officially. Internationally, Israel's actions have drawn condemnation from countries across Europe, the Middle East, and the UN. This, of course, had no impact, and Israel continued to bomb Rafah the next day, including killing 2 medical workers at the Kuwaiti hospital, leading to its closure. Maybe, just maybe, the time for condemnations is over. Maybe it's a time for sanctions. It's a time for boycotts. It's a time for action, retaliation, something, or stoppage of weapon shipments, anything, any material action at all to stop the genocide. As you might imagine, the whole team at Sandy Nora are extraordinarily distraught over what's happening, as I imagine you are too. And when you're distraught, do what you can to find others who are distraught as well, and fight for that change, fight for that action. Next, officials in Papua New Guinea have informed the United Nations that more than 2,000 people have died in a landslide on Friday, in a letter seen by the Associated Press. The government officially requested international help for search and rescue. The new death toll of 2,000 people is much higher than the figure that the government had provided initially of 670. It's nearly triple the original death toll. According to the Associated Press, the numbers of the official death toll have varied widely, and government officials would not respond to questions about how they arrived at those numbers. According to the island nation's National Disaster Center, Lucetta Lasomana, the ground is still unstable and could threaten rescue teams and survivors in the coming days. And finally, to Burkina Faso, where the military has extended its rule for another 5 years. The decision came following national talks that began on Saturday. The talks aimed to chart a path towards civilian rule for that country. The talks resulted in the approval of a new charter that would push the transition to democracy back 5 years from this coming July. Yes, elections were meant to occur this July following a military coup in 2022, but the military said security considerations take priority. Many political parties boycotted the talks, which took place in the capital, but several civil society and security representatives and lawmakers did attend them. As you might imagine, the delay in elections is drawing concerns about an eventual transition to democracy. Those are your headlines for Tuesday, May 28th. It's Tuesday. It's Sandy and Nora Day. So in a couple of hours, a new episode will drop. We talk about what else are we going to talk about? Obviously, Gaza. We'll talk about Gaza. We talk about Canada. We talk about our government's complete disappointing inaction, inability, refusal, support for the Zionist project that is killing so many people right now. I hope you tune in. It's maybe I just undersold how undepressing it is. It's not a super uplifting episode, but it is an important one, and I hope you will listen. You are listening to this podcast at sandynora.com, on the Real News Network podcast feed, and anywhere you get your podcasts. I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday. I'll talk to you tomorrow.